I slowly come into focus once again. Hello, everybody. I thought what we do is something slightly different today, because, I mean, we talk about sort of film music and things like that quite a lot, but we don't actually talk about the films themselves very much. And I think it will be a good opportunity to jump in and to look at a really short piece of film and just talk about the way in which one might approach it. Because those of you who are interested in film scoring, at least 75% of the job is thinking about what the film needs, what the role of the music is, you know, different approaches to it. The actual execution is important, but all these other things are things we tend to forget. So let's have a look at it. This is a concept trailer for a feature film called Ghoster by an incredibly talented director called Toby Meakins. And I worked with him on some lots of corporate stuff, and he makes short films as well, and we work with together on this. The gist of it is the ghoster is out there trying to find the sort of undead walking amongst us. So it's a very stylized, quasi-horror, sort of psychological thriller horror film. And before I started work on this, I looked at quite a lot of his other stuff to try and look at how he's approached music in the past. And it doesn't tend to use big themes and big orchestral stuff. It tends to be more subtle, more contemporary, more sound design orientated. So I take all that on board, because when you go into a project, the first thing you need to acknowledge is you are a cog in somebody else's wheel. This is their project, and you have to find a way of bringing your originality and your spin, but within the context of what they're trying to do. You can't just blitz in and do something completely different. Right, let's have a look at the film. This is the working copy which we got. So it's got a bit of voiceover at the start. I'll talk you through it as it goes. So there's this girl and this... Okay. So here we have a sequence of archive and illustration. Suffering and death. As though I haven't heard that before. Okay, now suddenly we're into this alley. And the note from the director was he wanted this sort of thumping kind of dance music in the background, as though this was a girl walking home after a night out at the club. So in this big sort of echoey ambient kind of passageway, we want to hear this sort of different going on. But okay, there. Did you caught that? There was a masked figure in the darkness. She's looking very unsettled. I don't need to tell you that. You can see. Oh, and there we have the flash through frame. Something's clearly up. Oh. Dong. There he is, right beside her. I love that moment. And now weird glitchy things are happening to her. Ah, plot twist, plot twist. What? She's what? And this is, the VFX have still to come on this. Like, bang! And she gets shot away. Okay. So this is temporary effects, which are in there, but just give you some idea of where the timing's going with this. Okay. Now he takes off his mask. I am the ghoster. And then we go to some credits and things like that. Okay, so that's the film. Now, what you need to do to start with is, okay, what's the purpose of the music in this film? And how much of it is there, and where does it go? The purpose is clearly to undermine the sense of, is to not undermine, to underscore the sense of threat and foreboding. But it isn't. This is not horror. This is more sort of psychological suspense, really. It's very, very stylish, obviously, and the music and the sound design are going to have to fit into that and support that. So it can't be cheesy. It needs to sound slightly more rethought and slightly different sound, something which you're not used to. So we might not have a big tune in here, but we might have a piece of sound design or a particular kind of motif which will help tie the whole thing together. That's a possibility with something which we would think about. So when it starts, also there's voiceover, which starts there. So whatever you're doing has got to sit under this and support it. You're not trying to hit these cuts. They're going past quite fast. It's something to drive this on because it's pacey. Okay, now here's the first thing it's not a hit point, it's what I call a waypoint, where you change direction, where the score will pivot. There's a slight issue here because the voiceover slightly hangs over the end of this sequence, so it doesn't go clean cut. So you have to work out whether you wait for him to say "and death" and then go whatever. But there is clearly a mounting sense of tension and pace as this whole opening unfolds. So you want to give this sense of hellish damnation, chaotic, building towards the end. And then you're not going to, very much like action, the last thing you want to do is try and keep all the tension going at 10 all the way through, because tension and suspense is relative, and therefore if you don't drop it back, you'll have nowhere to build up to. So we're going to drop it right back here. There's quite a good chance, if we now want to hear the boom, 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 distant dance music, you might take the score out completely. See, this is another interesting complexity which you frequently get to play with, is where you have... So there's two types of music in film. One's called diegetic and the other's called non-diegetic. If the character in the film can hear the music, then it's diegetic. If they can't hear the music, if it's just like score, then it's non-diegetic. And you have to sort of work out, in your scheme of things, how the two are going to sit together. I tend to think of them as two separate pieces of music, which then sort of slide together. For example, if somebody puts on an old record which is playing Happy Birthday and something horrible happens in the room, the record can't respond to what's going on in the room, can it? Because it's a record. So another layer of music has to do that. And this is the same here, because we've got thumping club music going on in the background, and then at some point we're going to want to bring in a sense of tension and suspense. Now, I think possibly what would work best is if we almost completely pull the music out. Suffer. So it builds up to a climax, and then when you take music out, it helps enormously if there's something else to take its place. And what we've got here is the non-diegetic scored music ends, and the diegetic dance music takes over. So it's like a baton being passed from one runner to another. And you see these little flashes of the ghoster going through. So I think we're still well out. We want to keep this sense of space, and if there's anything, it's very subtle, very, very subtle, because clearly the tension ramps up here. Look, that's the first time we clearly see the characters. So this is a proper hit point, and by hit point I mean something which you need to hit accurately. It doesn't need ba-boom. That would be cheesy and awful. What we want here is just some acknowledgement that the tension is ramped up. Because what's going to happen in these sequences is these key moments, it's going to ramp up and ramp up and ramp up until it reaches its climax when there's the shootout at the end. So if the music is out, as the ghoster we cut there, it comes in. So it's at sort of level 2 or whatever, but it's in and it's running. She looks incredibly unsettled. There, she notices something. We've gone up to a level 4. So whatever you were doing before, we now raise the game a bit. Now, she's looking away and the camera's moving, which gives you the idea that somebody's watching her. Why is she framed right? Why is she looking left? There, it's gone up to a 7. Now, she's glitching. What's happening? Plot twist, there's blood on her hands. Major plot twist. Sixth Sense moment happening here. She's the baddie. Oh, what? Oh, we thought she was just a girl on her way home. Now, bang. You're going to have to imagine where the bang is and where the visual effects go. Okay. So that is where the sequence is climaxing. And now what does it go down to? I think we can go back to a piece of music which will take us through into the titles, which sort of says, I'm the ghoster. This is my theme. Like it or not. Whew, sorry. Almost scared myself there. Right. That is how I would approach this. And if you haven't done this kind of thing before, you would need to watch a lot of stuff like this to get your ear in. You need to look at all those M. Night Shyamalan films and those things which sit on the cusp between horror and psychological thriller. How have people done it in the past? What are people doing now? Because you don't want to write music as though it was 10 years old. What has this particular director done before? All these things are important. And what I'm going to leave you with is the finished film, which is the ghost of the trailer, and you can see it's got some extra bits in. It's got some, it's got a little bit more at the start, and it's got a sort of play out at the end.
You could claim this is just a random shadow, interference, digital fakery. But look into the dark depths of history, and it's clear that this isn't some technological glitch. Fleeting glimpses and frightened whispers tell of a dark figure that, for hundreds of years, has haunted the land. A silent shade, always present wherever there is pain, suffering, and death.
So I was using this kind of muted atonal guitar, distorted guitar chops and sound designery elements. There's our dance music in the background. Bit of drum and bass. Gotta love a bit of drum and bass. But you see how much more creepy it is? There. So there was a deep thump, and we've got that. Actually, it's reversed guitar feedback. So the guitar becomes the sort of the ghoster's sound. Now she's glitching. So now there's quite a lot of sound design coming in. I work very closely with Tim, the sound designer, on this as well, so that we... So there's a steampunk thing going on here a bit as well with the pistols. There you go. Interestingly, this is exactly the kind of thing which we run courses about. So whether you're interested in a little short course or a fully blown postgraduate course, check this out. So that's what I did. I mean, obviously, if it turned into a full-length feature film, you'd be needing another 58 million ideas. But what I want to try and get over is the idea of the storytelling and how you support it, and particularly if you're working in this slightly more sound designery mold, how you need really strong collaboration with the actual sound designer on the film, because obviously some of those sequences are carried almost entirely by sound effects side of the sound design world, whereas others were more on the musical sound design, and the two blend in between, and that's quite a trendy thing at the moment as well. So look, if you found that useful and enjoyed it, then please subscribe to the channel, and sorry, I have no idea what I was going to say next. So when in doubt, stop talking, Guy. Great. Okay, see you soon.